Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive
Ooh, a deep dive.
into, well,
I like deep dive.
it's a real-life political thriller. You know, what happens after a president gets impeached?
Yeah.
We're not talking hypotheticals here. This is a very real situation
Yeah.
that is unfolding in South Korea as we speak.
Right.
President Yoon Yeol was just impeached on December 14th.
Wow.
But this story, as you can imagine,
I'm sure.
is far from over.
It's just beginning.
So to help us understand all of this, we have
happy to.
our expert here.
Yeah.
So what's so fascinating about this case is that it's only the second time that a South Korean president has faced impeachment.
Yeah, that's right.
And it really throws a spotlight
Yeah.
on the country's constitution and how these situations, that are so high stakes,
Absolutely.
how they're handled.
Yeah.
I was actually really surprised to learn that this has only happened once before.
Yeah.
So you're saying that even though the impeachment vote happened, it doesn't automatically mean that President Yoon is out of office.
Exactly. You got it.
Oh, okay.
It's not a sudden removal.
Gotcha.
It's really just the start of a legal process.
Okay.
So think of it like a formal accusation
Right.
that triggers a whole other chain of events. And this could take months to play out.
Months. Wow.
Yeah, a long time.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
If it's not an immediate removal, what happens next? Where does this deep dive take us?
Well, all the action now shifts to the Constitutional Court of South Korea.
Okay.
They're the ones that are ultimately going to decide Yoon's fate. And they have 180 days, that's about 6 months,
6 months.
to review the case and determine whether to uphold the impeachment.
Wow.
If they do, Yoon is officially removed from office.
Okay.
If they reject it, he gets his presidential powers back.
Wow. So basically,
Yeah.
the Constitutional Court is now holding the future of South Korea in its hands.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like a real-life legal drama unfolding.
Yeah.
It is. And you mentioned this isn't the first time they've faced this kind of decision, right?
That's right.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to look at the previous impeachment cases because they provide a little bit of context for how the court might approach this one. Back in 2017, we saw President Park Geun-hye removed from office after the court upheld her impeachment.
Right.
But then there was the case of President Roh Moo-hyun in 2004, where the court actually rejected the impeachment and he remained president.
Oh, wow.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, each case is different, and it really highlights how unpredictable this process can be.
Right. So each case has its own unique twists and turns.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious, what were the specific allegations that led to President Yoon's impeachment in the first place?
Well, there were a number of accusations, but two of the most serious ones involve his declaration of martial law
Okay.
and potential insurrection charges.
Martial law and insurrection? Those sound incredibly serious. It's
Yeah.
almost like something out of a history book, not modern-day South Korea.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. They're very strong accusations.
Okay.
Now, the court will need to examine the evidence and determine if these accusations warrant removing Yoon from office.
Right. Okay.
So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, so we have this high-stakes legal battle brewing.
Yeah.
It could take months to resolve,
Mm-hmm.
but in the meantime, who's running the country?
Well, that responsibility falls to the Prime Minister, Han Duck-soo.
Okay.
He stepped in as acting president while the court deliberates.
So kind of like a
Yeah,
temporary caretaker until things get sorted out.
precisely.
Okay.
But here's where it gets really intriguing.
Okay.
The Constitutional Court, which is supposed to have 9 justices, is actually short-staffed right now. 3 justices' terms ended back in October,
Oh, wow.
and their replacements haven't been appointed yet.
Oh, my God.
So they're down to 6 justices
Wow.
for one of the most important decisions in their history.
Yeah, that doesn't seem ideal.
No, it really adds another layer of complexity here.
Right.
And you remember how I said that at least 6 justices usually need to agree to uphold an impeachment?
Right.
Well, now with only 6 justices available, they all have to be on board to remove President Yoon from office.
Wow.
So even one dissenting voice could potentially save his presidency.
Wow, that's...
Yeah.
So each justice's vote carries even more weight than usual.
Absolutely.
But I'm wondering, couldn't this situation also cause delays?
Oh, for sure.
Could the court decide to wait until they have a full bench before making such a big call?
Yeah, that's a very real possibility.
Okay.
Traditionally, they prefer to have all 9 justices for these big, momentous decisions.
Right. So the longer it takes to appoint the new justices, the
Yes.
longer this whole process could drag on.
Exactly.
And what does that mean for South Korea in the meantime?
Well, that's what we'll explore next.
Okay.
The impact of this uncertainty, the potential outcomes for President Yoon, and what it all means for the future of South Korea.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break,
Sounds good.
and we'll be right back to continue our deep dive.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, you bring up a really important point. This situation isn't just about President Yoon.
Right.
This uncertainty hangs over the entire country.
Yeah.
Politically, economically, even internationally.
Right. So
Yeah.
let's kind of break that down a little bit.
Okay.
Let's say the court does uphold the impeachment
Hmm.
and removes President Yoon from office.
Yeah.
What happens then?
Well, that would be a major turning point in South Korean history.
Right.
I mean, it would mean that for the second time in recent years,
Yeah.
a sitting president was removed through impeachment.
Right.
And according to the South Korean constitution, it would trigger a snap presidential election.
Snap election.
Yeah.
How quickly would that have to happen?
They'd have just 60 days to elect a new president.
60 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
So imagine, the whirlwind of political activity.
Oh, my God.
Campaigning, debates,
Yeah.
all crammed into such a short time frame.
Yeah. That would be
Yeah.
an intense period
Absolutely.
for South Korea, that's for sure.
Yes.
But what if the court goes the other way?
Yeah.
What if they reject the impeachment?
Well, in that scenario, President Yoon would be reinstated
Okay.
and could theoretically return to office to finish out his term.
Could.
Well, imagine the political fallout.
Oh, yeah.
He would be leading a nation that's deeply divided.
Right.
A significant portion of the population would have lost faith in his leadership.
Right. Yeah. I can see how that would
Yeah.
make governing incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine him,
Yeah.
uniting the country
Right.
and pushing forward his agenda after all of this.
Exactly. His ability to pass legislation, to maintain public support,
Yeah.
even to conduct diplomacy on the world stage.
It would all be seriously compromised.
Wow.
It might feel like he's won the legal battle,
Yeah.
but lost the political war.
So you're saying even if he's technically allowed back in office,
Mm.
he might not be able to effectively lead.
Exactly. And that leads us to another possibility.
Okay.
President Yoon could choose to resign.
Resignation.
Yeah.
That's the third scenario we touched on earlier.
Right. And it might seem like a way to avoid further political turmoil.
Yeah.
It would be an admission that the country is too divided for him to govern effectively.
Right.
But here's the thing. Resignation would still trigger that same 60-day window for a new presidential election.
Oh, wow.
So
So no matter what,
pretty much.
it sounds like South Korea is headed towards a period of significant
Yeah.
political upheaval.
I
It makes
thought-
you wonder
Yeah.
about the impact this
Yeah.
will have on their democracy.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, isn't it? I mean, South Korea has faced these kinds of challenges before.
And they've always come out stronger. Their institutions have shown resilience.
Okay, so far we focused on
Yeah.
what this whole situation means
Right.
for President Yoon himself.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the bigger picture?
Yeah.
How could this political turmoil affect South Korea's place in the world?
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
South Korea is a major player on the global stage,
Mm-hmm.
both economically
Right.
and geopolitically.
Right. And those relationships can be delicate.
For sure.
How might this internal political instability
Right.
impact them?
Imagine trying to navigate complex diplomatic issues or trade negotiations
Yeah.
while simultaneously dealing with a major leadership crisis at home.
Right.
It could weaken their position, make it harder for them to assert their national interests.
Right. And then there's North Korea.
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine. They're just sitting back,
Yeah.
watching all of this unfold passively.
You're absolutely right. Any perceived weakness or instability in the South could embolden North Korea.
Right.
They might see it as an opportunity to make provocative moves or even escalate tensions.
So this situation has ripple effects far beyond
Absolutely.
South Korea's borders.
Yeah.
The stakes are high for the entire region.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of us watching this unfold, it's hard not to feel like we're in the middle of a political thriller,
Oh, yeah.
just waiting for the next plot twist.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
We've explored the impeachment process. We've analyzed the accusations against President Yoon.
Right.
We've discussed the potential outcomes.
Right.
But ultimately, the final chapter hasn't been written yet.
Right.
The Constitutional Court holds the pen.
And their decision will be a defining moment for South Korea's future. I guess for now, all we can do is wait and see how this dramatic story unfolds. You know, it feels like we've been holding our breath.
Yeah.
Just waiting to see what happens next.
Right.
In this whole impeachment saga.
For sure.
But as we wrap up our deep dive, I'm realizing this is more than just a dramatic story.
Yeah.
It raises some big questions about democracy in South Korea, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, this whole situation,
Yeah.
regardless of the outcome, it's highlighted the importance of checks and balances within a government.
Right.
You know, the role of the judiciary.
Yeah.
The power of public opinion.
Right.
It's all on display here.
It really makes you think about how fragile democracy can be.
It does.
But at the same time, we're also seeing the South Korean system working as intended.
That's true.
They have a process for dealing with these crises.
Right.
And that in itself is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think it's pretty remarkable. And, you know, for the South Korean people, it's a reminder that democracy is about more than just institutions.
Right.
It demands active participation.
Yeah.
You know, they need to stay engaged, make their voices heard, and help shape the future of their nation.
So what can people do while we wait for the court's decision?
Well,
how can they stay informed and make sense of all these twists and turns?
It all comes down to paying attention.
Okay.
Following the news closely, listening to the legal arguments being made, and just considering different perspectives. It's not about taking sides, but understanding the complexities of the situation.
And remembering that this isn't some abstract political game.
Yeah.
There are real people and real lives at stake.
For sure.
The decisions made in the coming weeks and months will have a lasting impact on South Korea's future.
Right. I think that's a great point to emphasize as we wrap up.
Yeah.
You know, this deep dive has given you the knowledge to understand what's happening and why it matters.
Right.
You've got the context, the potential outcomes, the big picture implications, all the pieces of the puzzle.
And now it's up to you to keep watching as the picture comes into focus.
Exactly.
You know, we've seen how unpredictable this situation can be.
We have.
And the final chapter is still being written.
Yeah, absolutely.
So stay curious, stay informed.
Yes.
And most importantly, keep thinking about what this all means for the future of South Korea.
Right.
And perhaps for democracy itself.
I think that's a great note to end on. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.